The morning sun was hot when Sarah walked to her helicopter. She had checked everything twice. Every button, every wire, every fuel line. Her Apache was ready to fly. She was ready to. But Major Collins stepped in front of her. His face was serious. "Not today, Sarah," he said. "This mission is too dangerous for you." Sarah felt her heart sink. She had trained for 2 years. She knew this helicopter better than anyone. But the major didn't care about that. "Why?" she asked quietly. "Women aren't built for combat flying," he said. "What if something goes wrong? What if you panic?" Behind him, the other pilots laughed. They thought it was funny. A woman wanting to fly a war helicopter. They climbed into their birds and started their engines. The noise was loud, but not louder than the silence Sarah felt inside. Her Apache sat quiet. Not broken. Not out of fuel. Just grounded because someone decided she wasn't good enough. What they didn't know was that this simple woman would soon save all their lives. Sarah didn't grow up dreaming of flying helicopters. She came from a small town in Texas. Her dad fixed cars. Her mom worked at the local school. They didn't have much money, but they had love. As a kid, Sarah was different. While other girls played with dolls, she took apart radios to see how they worked. She helped her dad fix engines. She learned that hard work was more important than being pretty or popular. After high school, Sarah became a nurse. She worked nights in the emergency room. She saw car accidents, heart attacks, people fighting for their lives. It taught her to stay calm when others panicked. It taught her that every second mattered when someone needed help. But something was missing. Sarah felt like she could do more. She could help more people if she could reach them faster. She could fly. At 28, she walked into a military office. The man behind the desk looked surprised. Most women didn't ask to be helicopter pilots. "Are you sure?" he asked. "It's very hard training." Sarah nodded. She was sure. Flight school was the hardest thing she had ever done. Every day for 6 months she studied until her eyes hurt. She practiced until her hands were sore. Out of 20 students who started, only 8 finished. Sarah was one of them. But even after passing, things weren't easy. The other pilots didn't take her seriously. They made jokes when she walked by. They forgot to tell her about meetings. They gave her the boring flights while they got the exciting missions. Sarah didn't complain. She just worked harder. She stayed late to practice. She studied every manual 3 times. She memorized every rule, every procedure, every emergency plan. She wasn't trying to prove she was better than the men. She just wanted to prove she belonged there too. Desert Wind Air Base was like a men's club. Everywhere Sarah looked, she saw male pilots, male mechanics, male officers. She was the only woman in the flying unit. The briefing room went quiet when she walked in. Conversation stopped. Eyes followed her to her seat in the back corner. She pretended not to notice, but it hurt every time. During mission planning, her ideas were ignored. If she suggested a better flight path, they nodded politely and did something else. But if Lieutenant Martinez repeated her exact same idea 5 minutes later, suddenly it was brilliant. Sarah ate lunch alone most days. The other pilots had their table near the window. Sometimes she tried to join them, but they talked about things she wasn't included in. Parties she wasn't invited to. Conversations that happened when she wasn't around. The worst part wasn't the big things. It was the small ones. The mechanic who double-checked her work even though she never made mistakes. The scheduler who somehow always forgot to put her name on the good missions. The way people said female pilot instead of just pilot, like being a woman was something strange. Major Collins was the worst. He never said directly that she didn't belong there. He was too smart for that. Instead, he gave her easy flights, practice runs, cargo deliveries, safe missions that fit her skill level. When she asked for combat training, he said she needed more experience. When she asked for more experience, he said she needed to be patient. It was always something. Sarah knew what was really happening. They were hoping she would quit, get frustrated and leave, find something more suitable for a woman. But Sarah had never quit anything in her life. She wasn't going to start now. It started like any other morning. Sarah checked her helicopter. Everything was perfect. She had been assigned to a training mission with the other pilots. Finally, a chance to show what she could do. But when she walked to her Apache, Major Collins was waiting. "Change of plans," he said. "Your bird has mechanical problems. You're grounded today." Sarah looked at her helicopter. She had just spent an hour checking it. There were no problems. She knew because she had looked at everything twice. "What's wrong with it?" she asked. "Engine issues," he said quickly. "Maintenance will check it later." Sarah wanted to argue. She wanted to point out that the engine was running perfectly yesterday. that she had tested every system that morning. But she knew it wouldn't matter. The decision was made. She watched the other pilots climb into their helicopters. The engine started with a roar. One by one they lifted into the sky, leaving her standing alone on the concrete. Her Apache sat silent. Not because it was broken. Because someone decided she shouldn't fly it. What happened next changed everything. The first call came at 9:47 a.m. Static filled the radio, then a panicked voice. "Mayday, mayday. We're going down." Sarah was in the hangar helping a mechanic replace a part on another helicopter. She dropped her wrench and ran to the radio. "Apache 2-1 is down," the voice continued. "We have injured soldiers. Need immediate evac." Sarah's heart pounded. Apache 2-1 was Lieutenant Martinez's bird. He was a good pilot. If he crashed, something was very wrong. More calls flooded in. Another helicopter was down. Then another. The training mission had become a disaster. 3 birds down, multiple injuries, and they were in a canyon with no road access. The base commander ran into the communications room. His face was pale. "What do we have available for rescue?" he demanded. The sergeant checked his list. "All our rescue birds are either down or too far away. The closest help is 45 minutes out." 45 minutes? The commander shouted. "People are bleeding out there." Sarah stepped forward. Her voice was quiet but clear. "Sir, I have a bird ready to go." Everyone turned to look at her. Major Collins frowned. "Your Apache is grounded for maintenance." "No, it's not," Sarah said firmly. "I checked it this morning. It's perfect." The room went silent. Sarah could feel everyone staring at her. The commander looked between her and Major Collins. "I can be in the air in 5 minutes," Sarah continued. "I know exactly where they are. I can get them out." Major Collins stepped forward. "Sir, I don't think." "People are dying," Sarah interrupted. It was the first time she had ever raised her voice to a superior officer. "While we're talking, they're bleeding. Let me go." The commander looked at the radio where desperate voices were still calling for help. He looked at Sarah standing straight and ready. Then he made his decision. "Go," he said. "Now." Sarah ran to her Apache faster than she had ever run in her life. Her hands moved automatically through the startup sequence. Engine on. Systems check. Weapons armed. In 3 minutes she was lifting off the ground. As she flew toward the canyon, her radio crackled with updates. 3 helicopters down. 7 injured soldiers. 1 was unconscious. Another was bleeding badly. They were trapped in a narrow canyon with steep walls on both sides. When Sarah reached the crash site, her heart sank. The canyon was even narrower than she expected. Sharp rock walls rose on both sides. There was barely enough room for her helicopter's rotors. One mistake would crash her bird into the stone. But the soldiers below were depending on her. She had to try. Sarah took a deep breath and began her descent. Inch by inch, she lowered the Apache into the canyon. The walls were so close she could almost touch them. The wind bounced off the rocks, making her helicopter shake and wobble. Through her headset, she could hear the other pilots who were still flying. They were watching from above, amazed that she was attempting such a dangerous rescue. "Sarah, it's too tight," Lieutenant Rodriguez radioed. "You'll never make it." Sarah didn't answer. She was too focused on keeping her helicopter steady. 6 inches to the left and her rotor would hit rock. 6 inches to the right, same thing. She had to be perfect. Finally, she reached the bottom. The injured soldiers were loaded onto her helicopter one by one. The first was Lieutenant Martinez, the same man who had gotten the credit for her ideas so many times. He was conscious but hurt badly. As the medic strapped him in, Martinez looked at Sarah through the cockpit window. His eyes were wide with surprise and gratitude. "Thank you," he mouthed. The second soldier was unconscious. Blood soaked through his uniform. The medic worked frantically as Sarah prepared for the most dangerous part, getting back out of the canyon. Lifting off was even harder than landing. The extra weight of the injured soldiers made her helicopter respond slower. The walls seemed to close in around her. Sarah's hands moved constantly on the controls, making tiny adjustments to keep them from crashing. Sweat dripped down her face inside her helmet. Her arms ached from the strain. But she kept climbing inch by inch until finally they cleared the canyon rim. "Outstanding flying," came a voice over the radio. It was the base commander who had been listening to everything. "Sarah, that was incredible." But Sarah wasn't done yet. There were still more soldiers to rescue. For the next 2 hours, Sarah flew mission after mission. Each rescue was dangerous in a different way. One crash was on a steep hillside where she had to hover with one wheel touching the ground. Another was in an area under simulated enemy fire, where she had to provide cover while the soldiers were loaded. The third rescue was the hardest. Major Collins himself was down. His helicopter had crashed during an emergency landing, and he was trapped with a broken leg. When Sarah arrived at his location, Collins was lying next to his wrecked bird. His face was pale from pain and blood loss. But when he saw Sarah's Apache approaching, his expression changed to something she had never seen before: respect. Sarah landed her helicopter perfectly despite the rough terrain. As the medics loaded Collins aboard, he grabbed her arm. "Sarah," he said weakly, "I was wrong. About everything. I'm sorry." Sarah nodded but didn't smile. She was too focused on getting him to safety. Words could wait. Right now he needed a doctor. By noon, Sarah had rescued 12 soldiers from 4 different crash sites. Every person who had gone down that morning was now safe. And she had done it all without backup, without help, and without a single mistake. That evening, a black car arrived at Desert Wind Air Base. General Patricia Stone stepped out, a woman with 4 stars on her shoulders and a reputation for being tough but fair. Word of Sarah's rescues had reached the highest levels of command. The general had come to see for herself what had happened. Sarah was in the hangar, checking her helicopter after the long day of flying. She was tired, dirty, and still wearing her flight suit. When someone told her the general wanted to see her, she barely had time to wash her hands. General Stone was waiting in the commander's office. She was a small woman with silver hair and sharp eyes. When Sarah walked in, the general stood up. "Pilot Sarah Williams," she said formally. "Today you flew 4 rescue missions in dangerous terrain under emergency conditions. You saved 12 lives. Is that correct?" "Yes, ma'am," Sarah replied. "And you did this after being grounded by your commanding officer?" Sarah hesitated. She didn't want to get Major Collins in more trouble. "The situation changed, ma'am. People needed help." General Stone smiled, the first time Sarah had seen her smile. "That's a diplomatic answer. But I've read the reports. I know what really happened here." The general walked to the window and looked out at the flight line. "Do you know why I became a pilot, Sarah?" "No, ma'am. Because when I was your age, they told me women couldn't handle military aircraft. They said we were too emotional, too weak, too distracted." Sound familiar? Sarah said nothing, but her eyes widened. "It took me 15 years to get my first combat command," the general continued. 15 years of proving myself over and over again. You did it in one day." General Stone turned back to Sarah. "What you did today wasn't just good flying. It was exceptional flying. Under pressure, in dangerous conditions, with lives on the line. That's what we call heroism." Sarah felt tears starting in her eyes but blinked them back. "I just did my job, ma'am." "No," the general said firmly. "You did everyone's job. When the system failed, when the men who doubted you were the ones who needed saving, you stepped up. That takes more than skill. That takes character." The general picked up a folder from the desk. "I'm recommending you for the Distinguished Flying Cross. It's the highest award for heroism in flight. You've earned it." Sarah stood straighter. "Thank you, ma'am. But more than that," General Stone continued, "I'm offering you a transfer. The Night Hawk Special Operations Squadron needs pilots like you. Pilots who can handle anything, anywhere, anytime. Are you interested?" Sarah didn't hesitate. "Yes, ma'am." "Good. You'll start next month." The general extended her hand. "Welcome to the elite, pilot. You've proven you belong there." As they shook hands, Sarah realized something had changed. Not just her assignment or her rank. The way people looked at her. The way she looked at herself. She wasn't the woman who had to prove she belonged anymore. She was the pilot everyone wanted on their team when things got dangerous. The mountains of Afghanistan were cold and dark as Sarah approached the landing zone. Her Apache cut through the night sky like a shadow, its engines barely whispering. In the back, her co-pilot checked the mission data one more time. "Hostile territory," he said. "Possible enemy contact. You ready for this?" Sarah smiled in the darkness. After 6 months with the Nighthawks, she had flown missions in 3 different countries. She had rescued diplomats, delivered supplies to forward bases, and provided cover for ground troops in firefights. Each mission was different. Each one was dangerous. But none of them scared her the way that first day at Desert Wind had scared her. "I'm ready," she said. As her Apache descended toward the landing zone, Sarah thought about Major Collins. He was back to flying now, his leg healed. But he was different too. He had started a program to recruit more women pilots. He said the military needed people who could think clearly under pressure, and gender didn't matter. She thought about General Stone, who called her once a month to check on her progress. The general was retiring soon, but she wanted to make sure women like Sarah had the support she never had. Most of all, she thought about that morning when they told her she couldn't fly. When they decided her Apache should stay grounded because they didn't believe in her. Now she was flying the most dangerous missions in the world. Other pilots requested her specifically for their teams. Young women wrote her letters asking for advice about becoming pilots. The helicopter touched down softly in the Afghan mountains. Sarah ran through her post-flight checklist automatically, her hands steady and sure. She wasn't the simple woman from Texas anymore, the one people underestimated and overlooked. She was Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Williams, Nighthawk Squadron, one of the best combat pilots in the military. But in her heart, she was still the same person who couldn't stand by and watch while people needed help. The same person who believed that being ready was more important than being liked. The same person who proved that sometimes, the person everyone doubts is exactly the person everyone needs. Today Sarah trains new pilots at the elite flight school. Half of her students are women. All of them learn the same lesson she learned that day in the desert. Your worth isn't determined by who believes in you. It's determined by what you do when it matters most. When young pilots ask her for advice, she tells them, stay ready. Work harder than everyone expects. And when the moment comes, and it will come, don't wait for permission to do what you know is right. The Apache helicopter that was too broken to fly that morning? It's still in service. Sarah keeps a picture of it on her desk, a reminder that sometimes what looks like an obstacle is really an opportunity waiting for the right person to claim it. And whenever someone tells her that something is impossible or too dangerous or not suitable for someone like her, Sarah just smiles and remembers the feeling of lifting off into that desert sky, carrying the lives of 12 soldiers who had learned that day never to underestimate a simple woman with the courage to fly.